So welcome, everybody. My name is Eric Agelay. I'm the president and founder of ACIR, and I'm very glad today to Startup Istanbul to be able to talk and introduce Adeo Ressi, very famous person and something that has been such a huge contributor to the economic entrepreneurship and innovation culture and community around the world. Adeo Ressi is the CEO of the Founder Institute, a startup launch program that operates in nearly 200 cities worldwide. And he is a recognized mentor for fast growth technology businesses. He has pioneered innovations in the protection of founder rights, the raising of early stage capital, and the scaling of new businesses. Previous to the Founder Institute, Adeo has also helped to create nearly $2 billion in shareholder value by founding or running 9 businesses, including TheFunded, Game Trust, Xceed, and Total New York. In addition, the Founder Institute has helped to create approximately $25 billion more in shareholder value by launching nearly 3,000 technology companies that have raised an estimated $1 billion from investors. Adeo previously served on the board of the X Prize Foundation to pursue his interest in space exploration and techniques to motivate human achievement. So welcome, Adeo. We're very glad to have you here and be able to share some of your expertise with some of the founders out there. I'll hand it over to you with no more ado.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That was very generous. I certainly just try to do my best to make the world a better place. And I hope that many of the entrepreneurs who are listening today feel the same way. What I would say is that I'm here to help with questions, but I also have some things that I'd like to share with you. So if you have questions, there's a Q&A button at the bottom. If you click that and ask questions, we'll turn it over and get to your questions throughout the talk. So there are 3 things, though, that I think are important today for entrepreneurship, and they're not really in any particular order. I think you have to think about what impact is for you and what impact you want to have on the world. Second, I think we need to be aware of the effects of the pandemic, and there's already a question in the Q&A about that. And then third, I think we need to think about how virtual changes your fundraising and team dynamics. So I can go through each of them and start answering questions as they come along. But let's start with impact because it's at the very beginning of your entrepreneurial journey. And even now, if you're later along in your journey, to think about how you want to impact the world in a positive way. And if it's not obvious, I think impact is probably the most important thing for any entrepreneur to think about today. So there's a lot of changes in the world. Many of them are taking us down a bad path where we're destroying the environment and leaving a worse planet than we inherited for our children. And we need to think about ways to make this world better for our children than the way that we inherited it. And so there's so many things to do. But the United Nations has put together a great 17 item plan called the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And if you're not familiar with them, I recommend that you read them and think about which goal you could foster within your entrepreneurial initiative. Now, these goals were designed for governments and large corporations to change the world. And unfortunately, governments and large corporations are moving very slowly on them. Thankfully, startups are nimble and can do things much faster. So you could very easily implement one of the UN Sustainable Development Goals in your business and probably have a bigger impact than many governments have had, even though this program is tailored for governments. So what we've done at the Founder Institute is we've taken the 17 UN Sustainable Goals, and they have 169 sub-goals, which actually have metrics associated with most of them. Again, the problem is those metrics are targeted at governments and large corporations. So we've created startup versions of those metrics called iKPIs. And the site is being upgraded right now, but if you're interested in seeing some startup focused KPIs that you could use for your own business, you can go to fi.co/declaration and see how you can bring impact into your company and help to make the world a better place faster than governments are doing, faster than large corporations are doing, and possibly having a larger impact than both. And it's time that we all contribute to the future of humanity and not leave our fate to the will of others, which and many times doesn't appear to be in alignment with our own values and beliefs. So turn the world into a place that you want to live by turning the company into a model of what you want to do. So I guess second, we could talk a little bit about the pandemic, because there's already a question in the Q&A. So you can not only ask questions in the Q&A, but you can vote up and down questions. So again, if you have questions for me, please pop them in the Q&A. Nizam was asking, do you think we are headed towards a depression due to the pandemic? That's a difficult question, Nizam, sorry, because they're very different situations in different countries around the world that really will mean different outcomes. So Asia, for the most part, while the pandemic's been hard, has managed to keep the case counts low, managed to keep hospitalizations very low. And as a result, the economic impact, while not great, because if one area experiences really bad situations due to the pandemic, and we live now in a global economy, no one is 100% isolated. But, if you're dealing with lower economic output and a health crisis, it's a lot better than just lower economic output and no health crisis. So I think you're going to see some areas of the world that are hard hit, and some areas of the world and some countries with varying results in those areas that are less hard hit. So Europe, for right now, looks like it's going through a pretty intense second wave. The whole of the UK is on lockdown. And there's just simply no way that when you lock down an entire country, and they're locking down for 30 days, that's 1/12 of a year, that the economic productivity of that country is going to suffer greatly. Now, the nice thing about the UK, it's a blended economy with a lot of jobs in, finance and tech and things like that, which can work remotely. There's some other places that might need to do more severe lockdowns that don't have a blended economy. And I think that they're going to see even harder economic consequences. So it's not black and white whether there's going to be a depression or not. I think some places will experience much more severe economic impacts, and other places will experience less. And it really will depend on a combination of the country's policies towards the pandemic, the people's will to follow those policies, and then various other factors like weather, et cetera, will play into it. Globally, though, we're going to slow down. And I want to talk first about the second wave, and then second about the slowdown. And I see there's some other questions in the chat. So as an entrepreneur right now in the world, in the Northern Hemisphere, it's pretty clear that a second wave is building momentum much faster than the first wave. Now there's more testing and all these things. So it's possible that this second wave was not necessarily bigger than the first wave yet, because maybe we didn't test so well in the first wave. but it seems to be gaining incredible momentum. Now, it started gaining momentum really at the end of October, moving into early November. It's been almost doubling in some cases each day in different countries. So there's usually a lag to the hospitalization and the negative consequences on the health system of about 4 to 6 weeks. So we're roughly 2-ish weeks into a pretty big second wave of the pandemic, and which means we're anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks from seeing some pretty serious consequences from that second wave. Now, maybe it's possible that because of mutations in the virus that the consequences will be less. Because the virus is spreading in younger people, the consequences will be less. But there's no doubt that there will be consequences. And there will be consequences on the health system. And the health systems worldwide are very optimized to patient load. And patient load is going to go up. So it's unclear what will happen with the health systems. So what I would say as an entrepreneur, what does this mean for you? What I'm recommending to everyone that we interact with is plan for the worst and hope for the best middle outcome. I think the best would be a vaccine that is a single shot or a single dose and works almost 100% and can be mass manufactured very easily. I don't think that's realistic in this period of the second wave. So that's the absolute best. I mean, I'd love it to be realistic, but that's very unrealistic. I think the middle case is that the hospitalizations aren't that bad, that everything, even though there's a huge infection rate, it doesn't translate into strain on the healthcare system. And I think that's what we want to hope for. But the worst is quite bad. Hospital systems being overwhelmed, which leads to increased death rates, society shutting down, which you're starting to see happen, like the UK and others in Europe, where it's full shutdown. And that will lead to economic consequences for the next, 2 to 4 months. So as an entrepreneur, you need to form your own opinion about what the worst case scenario looks like for your business in the markets where you operate and plan around it. And you've got somewhere around 2 to 4 weeks to execute on that plan before the potential of that situation occurs. So I'm hoping that everyone here takes that advice and thinks about it and at least has a plan so that in the worst case scenario, you are in a safe and good spot to grow. In terms of the third topic, we could take a question here as well. Again, for everyone here, this is really a Q&A session. So if you pop your questions down below and there's a button that says Q&A, I think there's also a button that says dialogue. So it's the second one that says Q&A, but I'll open this up to see if questions are coming there too. Hello, everyone. So the second question is, hi, Adeo, good morning. It would be great if you can shed some light on the success of the equity collective model of FI. How has that helped galvanize a community and as well bring sustainability to the FI model? Some examples of warrants being executed would be helpful. Sure. And then I'll come back to the big picture stuff of going virtual after I get through the question, any questions that come in. So for those of you who don't know much about the Founder Institute, I run a pre-seed accelerator called the Founder Institute, which has chapters in roughly 200 cities around the world. I think it's a little bit more. And what happens is when you join the program, many people have a job. Some people have quit their job and are just in the first steps of starting their company. So this is very early. We call it 0 to 1. 0 is like you have an idea and a job. 1 is you have a company. when you set the company up, you give a certain amount of equity into what we call the equity collective. It's 4%. 1% goes to the leaders who run the program. 1% goes to the mentors who are experienced CEOs that are helping you build your business. 1% goes to you, the graduate, who you own a piece of everyone else. And the final percent goes to the Founder Institute, and we allocate that to our team, partners, friends, etc. So we share your equity with a large group of people who then become vested or interested to see you succeed. And, it's been pretty good. We're distributing 7 figures of equity collective. So what happens is as a company grows, it might get bought or go public or something like that. And then there's a distribution to the shareholders, which includes the equity collective. So money comes in, and twice a year we divvy up that money, sometimes a little bit more, and send it out to the people who are in the equity collective. And the equity collective is by cohort. So we get 7 figures of exits a year. We take the money, divide it up, send it out. So I guess you're asking for questions on success stories. So I guess the first success story is that there's 7 figures of exits every year being distributed to the network. And it's always nice if you go and mentor for a few hours and get a $10,000 check, or you went through the program and you get a $10,000 check or something like that because of an exit from a peer. I think the largest exit checks have been $50,000. The smallest exit checks are a few $100s. So it really depends on the size of the exit, the amount of people in the pool, et cetera. In terms of individual companies, so, there's quantifiable and inquantifiable benefits. So the quantifiable benefit may be something like the fact that, easy example is you can call any of the mentors that were in your program, and they usually will spend the time to have a coffee with you or something like that. And they might do that anyway, but the equity collective increases the camaraderie between the graduates, the leaders, and the mentors. But the camaraderie, which is less quantifiable, is definitely there. Ways that you can see it quantified is that there are groups that graduated from the Founder Institute in 2010, for example, cohorts of graduates that continue to meet today, 10 years later, every month. And maybe that initial camaraderie was sealed by the equity collective, but it's created this bond that's continued for much longer. So hopefully I answered your question. And we got a lot more questions that I'm seeing. Hi, I'm Hiba from Damascus, Syria. We are providing mental health online consultation services. What should we consider during the time since COVID-19 crisis? Is there startups that can grow fast in this time? That's a great question. So I was talking about virtual third, and I wanted to get through some of your questions. So keep those questions coming. But okay, so let's first of all, there's probably a second pandemic going on that no one is talking about, which is a mental health crisis. Because as the viral pandemic has spread and forced radical changes in our behavior worldwide, a related mental health crisis, or you can argue pandemic, has also been spreading, and we've all experienced the the highs and lows of the changes that have come. Like I traveled, as a couple friends of mine have traveled for some important things during the pandemic. Not much, once in my case, and I've had some friends do it a couple times. Transatlantic flights with 17 people on them, right? Or less. That's, people, those flights were full. So many, many changes have happened in the way that we live, in the way that we vacation, in our family life. I'm homeschooling children. And this has created a real mental health challenge for many, many, many people. So mental health is one of the most important things that is not being talked about enough in the world today. So I'm proud of you for building a mental health startup and thinking about doing it online. I think this is a very, very necessary thing to provide, and we need many people trying to solve the mental health pandemic in the same way that we need many people working on the physical pandemic, right? Because the mental health effects of the pandemic will last long past the creation of a vaccine. So the mental health effects are much longer lasting. So the second part of the question is, are you seeing companies grow fast in this time? And the answer to that is absolutely. I mean, the Founder Institute itself has all of our core metrics, with the exception of a few, have tripled or centupled. So we've seen, event attendance, all these things, virtual, go up dramatically. So businesses are growing very quickly in the pandemic time. It depends on the business, et cetera. So I can tell you how to think about this a little bit, and it will be helpful to you. So you have different kinds of businesses growing. So obviously, if you're doing virtual meetings, virtual work environments, your growth rate is going crazy. I would think that if you can figure out a way to market your virtual mental health counseling or consulting, that you would be able to also grow very quickly, because we've had a telemedicine graduate in India, and they just legalized telemedicine as a result of the pandemic, and that company just exploded in growth. And so there's a lot of opportunities to grow very quickly if you get things right. And I like to say that you can achieve something now in weeks and months that once took months and years, or even days and weeks that once took months and years. So you can, if you get your market right now, your growth will be explosive. And so it's not just your market, though. What I would say is that the companies that I see growing very quickly are very much in alignment with a new value structure that's emerging in humanity, because the pandemic basically forced humanity to look at saving the sick and the weak, because they are most affected by the pandemic. And this has created a revolution of ethics and morality that was long overdue. And if you can create a business that benefits from the current state of humanity and aligns with the values of humanity, like your mental health counseling business, you can keep that business in alignment with great values, it should scale. And this is why you see a company like Tesla growing like crazy without underlying business growth, in their market capitalization is growing faster than their business, because people want to invest in, people want to support, people want to buy products from companies that they believe in. So that's super important. Okay, so let me, there's some other questions here. Since we went on to the pandemic and virtual, let me just talk about two things there. You, as a startup entrepreneur today, are operating in a world that's going to be virtual for most of 2021. You might be able to do some things. It would, like, if you have a storefront, you might be able to do some things with the storefront. If you have some manufacturing capabilities, you're going to be able to do some manufacturing. But on the whole, 2021 will be another virtual year for humanity. So you really need, as an entrepreneur, to be thinking about how to do virtual well, right? So how do you find virtual employees, onboard them and integrate them into your company culture? How do you pitch investors through virtual medium and get them engaged and willing to give you the money you need to scale? This is going to be your hardest challenge and biggest opportunity for the rest of this year and most of 2021. So on the hiring front, there's lots of questions. Are you virtual first, right? Or do you eventually want to move back to a physical location? If you had a physical location before and you've had to give it up because of the pandemic, do you want to go back to a physical location, or are you going to just stay virtual? And then if you decide to stay virtual, and that's a big decision, may I add. I mean, we have not fully made that decision at the Founder Institute. We had to shut down our office in Bulgaria. We had to shut down our office here in Silicon Valley. We had another satellite in Denver, and we're just like, all of them are closed. And we haven't fully decided if the core team is just going to always go virtual, or if we're going to pick up offices again when everything returns. So this is not something that you can just decide. You have to think about, discuss with your team, feel what is the right answer, and then, collectively agree. And then let's say you collectively agree to be virtual, you're going to have to build out recruiting, onboarding, and other things in the virtual world. And there's no great rule book, there's no right way. So it's going to take a lot of time and effort for you to do that. I'll go back to the investor thing in a moment. Let's see what questions, because we have some questions around it. So for example, Shariful is asking, what 3 or 4 things investors see from startups to invest? So there we go. We'll turn to a question and hopefully talk a little bit about that. So one of the other things the Founder Institute does is we help launch venture capital firms all around the world and early stage. So pre-seed, seed, and Series A. And our goal is to launch 1,000 funds by 2025. And this year we'll launch about 100 funds, which we're in process of doing right now. So generally speaking, the first thing you have to understand is that most investors now are going to engage with you almost exclusively through Zoom for the foreseeable future. Again, probably through 2021. Now, you might be able to meet them if they're local, but I might assume that you're going to be pitching through Zoom. So in general, investors like to have an alignment of their view of the world with your business. So they may want to be investing in a certain vertical, like supply chains, in a certain region, like Turkey. And that's important to have alignment with the investors' interests. Second, the investors really are looking for a personality match, right? Where it's like, okay, I like this person likes me, there's a lot of camaraderie here. And this is pretty universal if it's an angel investor or a venture investor. And then third, for most investors, they want to be able to know that they can help, right? Because everyone's capital, like the unfair advantage of having capital is capital with the ability to help. So if I put $25,000 as an angel investor into a company that aligns with what I believe, a founder that I have great camaraderie with, but I can't really help, then that's just money that I could put in the stock market or any other vehicle because I can't really help there either, right? So it's not so much a financial investment, it's an investment where they can add value. So you, as the founder running a process, need to make sure that those three things are true also for you. So, right, first, does your business align with this investor's vision and beliefs and goals? Second, do you get along with this investor? And third, can they really help? And so what you want to do when pitching them in a virtual environment is try and figure out those three things. And I would recommend that it's going to take at least 2 or 3 Zoom interactions with a single investor to get through those 3 things, right? Are you in alignment? That could be the pitch meeting. Do you have camaraderie? That could just be a friendly, casual conversation, maybe even a virtual drink session. And then third and final, how can they help? Maybe you just have a Zoom call on like, how can you help us? Let's brainstorm some ideas. Here's what we're working on, right? So if you can get to those 3 things, you can probably close any investor. There's another question from Shariful. Hi, what 3 qualities do you expect from a founder? This is a tough question because I think there's so many different kinds of founders in the world today that it's not like, this founder is better than that founder because this founder is smarter or this founder is blah, right? But here's what I would say. As a founder, you can work on to be more successful, right? So first and foremost, I think that being a good founder is a journey to being a good human being. And the better that you work on, the more that you work on yourself to be in better alignment with who you are and expressing that in the world, the better a founder that you will be. And if I talk to any of the top founders in the world, from Elon Musk onward, the journey of creating companies is as much a journey of understanding yourself, your own limiting beliefs, your own insecurities, etc., and then realizing how that affects the growth and performance of your business. Because in many ways, you are the torchbearer and the leader of the vision, et cetera, by being the founder. And so a lot, you look at companies with toxic cultures and it almost always, quote unquote, starts at the top. So conversely, you look at companies that are doing very well, it almost always starts at the top. So a lot of introverted thought processes and personal growth is probably the single best thing that a founder can do to ensure the success of their business. And there's lots of ways to do this, but if you need a simple way to get started, what I would recommend doing is when you face a problem in the business, look at how it is a problem within you. And the a lot of times it's like, well, we failed because we couldn't raise money. And we failed because the market wasn't good enough. And we failed because, and everyone's like pointing outward at these things. I would recommend that you point inward and say, what did I do that caused this problem, right? And then ask a series of what I call recursive whys. Why did I do it that way? Well, I did it because of this. Well, why did I do it because of that? And then you keep asking the why question, and it will help to unpack some of your unconscious biases, some of your limiting beliefs and fears that are preventing you from achieving success. Okay, let's see what other questions we have going on here. Hello, my name is Obella from ADI Solar Energy, Morocco Agritech Company. My question is, when do you know you got the great idea? When does it click? When do you know you should change and move forward? I see, Eric, you're coming online. You're going to help with some questions because we got a bunch.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
And yeah, I would love it. Let me answer this one that I just asked. Thank you so much, Eric. So the solar, the solar idea, when is idea good? When is an idea bad? Okay. So I'm going to give you a non-traditional answer that I believe is correct. So when you're, and I've experienced this many times, there's something what I call the magic. And the magic is essentially the following. When every problem that your business faces is easily dealt with, when opportunities are appearing continuously, when you're growing without really working, and all these things are just kind of happening seamlessly, you have what I call the magic. Now, it's for businesses to get the magic, it's product market fit times alignment of the founder with the mission, all these things. And the more aligned that you are with the mission, the more aligned that mission is with the needs of the world, the more likely it is that you're going to get the magic. And you definitely know that you probably have the magic. It's because it's not very clear that you have the magic when you have the magic, but it is really clear when you don't have the magic. So if you feel that your business is constantly struggling, right? And listen, there's a struggle in everything that you do, unfortunately, because there's a lot of innate problems in the world today. But the magic it doesn't feel like a struggle. It feels like an opportunity for growth, and the organization very easily deals with struggles. So if you feel like these struggles that you're facing are overwhelming and burdensome and you can't seem to make progress, then that's a good sign that the business is out of alignment. And I would take the time to do some personal work and reflection to start by aligning yourself. See if you can carry that alignment into the business, and then see if you can start powering through these troubles and setbacks that you're facing in a more seamless and easy way, at which point you'll know you'll have the magic and you'll know your business idea and your business path is right. Eric, do you want to pop another?
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great point there about that. Just, many startups are always talking about, hey, the grit, the perseverance, keep on going forward, or am I banging my head against the wall here, right? And I think you point out a very good difference of, can you feel these overwhelming obstacles continuing, or are these just you need to do some tweaks and kind of reflect inward to see, is it you, or is it something that you just that you're not hitting the right market fit? So I think that's a great point. But that kind of leads me to another one, the question that I'm seeing a lot of underlying questions here regarding what you mentioned in the beginning about the impact, right? And focusing on the impact and where you want the world to be. And I've seen a lot of questions here and some of the other ones regarding how do you balance some of these things that are more impactful. SDGs, for example, if it were easy, everybody would do it, right? There's an extra cost maybe to the market. And how do you balance that with kind of some of the hard economic realities of growing that business? And there's no magic bullet, I understand that, but your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah, so here, okay. First, we have to do it. So it's not optional, right? The SDGs are needed. And there are enormous business opportunities in the SDGs, enormous. And the creativity to turn the SDGs into business models is why we have entrepreneurship and startups in the first place, right? We didn't have search engines, now we do. We didn't have eBay, now we do. So some of those innovations are really simple, like, flea market online is eBay, right? So it doesn't take a mental giant to do that. But some of the innovations that are needed to make the SDGs into viable large businesses will take some trial and error, and will take some entrepreneurial elbow grease to make happen. But I know for a fact that every single one of them is a multi-billion-dollar business opportunity for the right entrepreneur. And we can go through almost any of them. And the gender equality, I mean, there is a lot of work to be done there. There are not many positive male role models in the world right now. And there frankly not too many positive female role models either. So we've got a whole reconstruction opportunity of how men and women interact with each other, and what positive role models look like. And there's billion-dollar businesses around that. They may not be obvious business models right now. So really what I would say is, if you're thinking of having an impact, you can take a traditional business and bring some sort of impact point to it, like a Tom's shoes, or there's actually, I think, a better example is there's inflatable solar lights that they're giving to Africa, that you buy one here to go camping with, and then they donate one to Africa. So, but the Tom shoes also give shoes to poor people. So you can take traditional models and add an impact component to it. But the real interesting thing with entrepreneurs on the call is, how do you make new economic models with impact first? So I've been looking at Superfund sites, which are just really horribly polluted areas that no one has the ability to clean up, and it takes billions and billions of dollars of money to do. And there's a Superfund site on the largest largest freshwater lake in California. It's a Superfund site, which and it's largely impoverished and has a meth problem. And so if you could come up with a way to clean that lake, right, the real estate around it would be worth billions and billions of dollars. So a sort of a non-traditional model would be, why don't you create a very large prize to clean the lake and fund it with the real estate arbitrage of the land around the lake, which is, not totally derelict, but in pretty rough shape. So you buy it for $100,000 now, and you sell it in 20 years when the lake is clean for $100 million, you get 100x, and you take that, you put it to the prize, all this stuff. So there's tons of we need the creativity of entrepreneurs. working on these impact models and related businesses that turn the regeneration and improvement of our planet and our society into really big business models.
That's fascinating. I mean, thinking outside the box there on those revenue models of how that will work is fascinating. And Adeo, I want to be very respectful of your time, so I appreciate that. And if I could just ask one more, I'm trying to kind of summarize a bunch of these questions on the right-hand side.
Sure.
Some people are asking very specific things about their business, but I think one recurring trend I'm seeing there, you've had so much experience with founders and funders and getting startups to the next level. And we see a lot of these questions here, but if I could maybe put them all together, is there something that you see? Is there a trend, top two or three mistakes you see founders make all the time before they come to the Institute and that they learn? Is there some generic kind of thing that you see, kind of, I don't want to say rookie mistake, but I mean, these are things you see all the time that, they then learn because they're getting that direct, uncompromising feedback from your founders and from your mentors?
I mean, it's probably the easiest one is that is very, very common. A lot of people feel very inspired and they run out and they start something, right? I think Startup Weekend's tagline is start something. And it's cute, right? But you're making something in the world. And here's the timeline that I think most founders don't really understand. In my experience, you don't actually know if you have a good business for 3 to 5 years. And then it might take you another 5 years to get that to real scale of any type. So you're on a kind of 10-year journey, right? Most Series A funds are 10 years long, and they're coming in when you're a year or two old. So they're really assuming, and some of them now are extending to 12 and 15 years. So if you do something in entrepreneurship that's successful, the joke is like, we're the 10-year overnight success or whatever that gets said all the time. It's going to take a lot longer and be a lot more effort than you think. And that's okay. I'm not saying that's bad or good. That's not a judgment, right? That it is what it is, right? So with that said, I feel like a lot of people jump into entrepreneurship. They find something they think is cool. It's like, this is cool. I'm going to do that. And then a certain amount of time elapses and they're like, I don't like this at all. This isn't cool anymore. And I've done this myself. So I know, like someone's told me, hey, you want to partner with me on this idea? And I'm like, that idea makes a lot of sense. I like the idea logically. Let me go do the idea, and don't do that. Right? It's like ready, aim, fire, and it's like ready, fire, aim. So when you go rush into an idea, you're like ready, fire. Like once you fired, you can't be aiming. So what you really need to do is like ready, aim, fire. And aiming is probably one of the most important things that get overlooked. And of course, you're always tweaking over time. Yep. But like if you got to start with really, really, really something you believe in and that you care about. And here's what I would say. Everything you know about the world is probably wrong, okay? And as you start a company, you're going to realize that really a lot because you're like, I think it works like this. And you're like, oh, it doesn't work like that at all, right? So it's very good for you to assume that your assumptions are wrong. And right, that's a great place to begin. So as a result, don't logic yourself into a business because all your assumptions are going to be wrong unless you spend an enormous amount of time researching. And even then, a lot of your assumptions are going to be wrong because you're probably going to be doing something new. So you're going to be doing parallel. You're going to do parallel research. Say, wow, this company did this, so I should be able to do that. So just everything, all your assumptions are going to be wrong. So you really have to start a business from the heart. Something that you're passionate about, something that you believe in, something that you care about. And you have to do the research, assuming that your assumptions are going to be wrong, and try and get as close to reality as you can. And then when you believe in something and you're passionate about it, and you've done the requisite amount of work researching and understanding it, then look for signs that you should be doing it. External signs like positive reinforcements coming your way, because the more positive reinforcements that come your way, the more likely it's going to be aligned and flow, right? So look for those positive reinforcements. Wow, people keep volunteering to work for me. You know, someone just offered me funding and I wasn't pitching them. I had a whole bunch of people sign up and I just put up a landing page and did no promotion. So look for the positive signs and then go, right? So I guess we're out of time now. And I need to jump to my next meeting. Thank you so much, Eric, for helping with those questions.
Fascinating. Thank you, Adeo. And I really appreciate that mix of the passion, but also making sure you're making sure you're aiming before you just go out and fire, I think is a lesson that every startup can definitely learn from. But everyone, Adeo Ressi, so grateful you could join us here on Startup Istanbul. Fantastic insights from your work and the continuing work you're doing with the Founders Institute. Adeo, all I can say is thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure. And I know everybody benefited from your experience and your talk here.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a beautiful event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you very much. Have a great day and stay safe and healthy.
Thank you so much.
Do my best.